Let's be honest. Have you ever wondered why grown-up, successful people are still scared of vampires? Not zombies or werewolves, but those elegant bloodsuckers in capes. After all, they're the only mythical creatures that manage to both terrify and captivate us in the 21st century. Today we're going to break down this fascinating phenomenon. We'll figure out where it all came from and why vampire legends popped up independently in dozens of cultures around the world. And most importantly, we'll understand what it is in our human nature that keeps drawing us back to stories about these beautiful, undead beings who feed on our life force. It all started long before Count Dracula, back in times when people didn't understand why the dead sometimes looked a little too alive. Picture a primitive village where someone dies from a mysterious illness. Then, a few days later, neighbors start dropping one by one. In ancient Mesopotamia, situations like this were blamed on the demoness Lamashtu. She was so terrifying that even other demons feared her. Lamashtu drank the blood of infants and new mothers, bringing disease and death into people's homes. The Egyptians took it further, creating the goddess Sekhmet, a lioness who literally reveled in human blood. According to legend, she once got so carried away wiping out humanity that the gods had to trick her with red beer, making her think it was blood so she'd calm down. The Greeks added to the horror with lamias, half-woman, half-snake creatures who lured young men and then drained their blood. And then there were striges, nightbirds with women's heads that attacked babies. Even back then, these blood drinkers knew how to take on an appealing form. The Romans built on the idea of evil spirits of the dead, lemures, who came back to torment the living. Interestingly, they were the first to use garlic and iron for protection against evil. Some traditions really stick around, don't they? But the real breakthrough happened among Slavic peoples. That's where Upyrs emerged, corpses that rise from graves to drink the blood of their relatives and neighbors. The Slavs were the first to detail the rules of vampire existence. The Balkan tradition was especially rich. In Serbian, Bulgarian, and Romanian folklore, vampires became a full-blown epidemic. That's where they got names we still know: vampire, Upyr, Strigoi. From there, the myth spread across all of Europe. What's amazing is that all these cultures independently created very similar beings. Undead who drink the blood of the living, fear the sun, garlic, and holy symbols. Coincidence? Unlikely. Over thousands of years, the vampire image has changed dramatically, from a disgusting rotting corpse to an elegant aristocrat. But how did that happen? And what stayed the same in their makeup? The thirst for blood is the core of the myth. But why blood specifically? In ancient times, people believed the soul was in the blood. Drinking someone's blood meant stealing their life force, their essence. It was the ultimate violation of boundaries between self and other. Vampires' immortality reflects our complicated feelings about death. We dream of living forever, but we know such a life would be a curse. Vampires embody this dilemma. They got what they wanted, but at what cost? Their ability to shapeshift makes vampires especially dangerous. A bat can slip in anywhere. A wolf inspires primal terror, and mist is totally elusive. An enemy who can take any form is the embodiment of paranoia. Vampires' hypnotic powers are particularly key. They don't just attack, they seduce, making the victim crave their own doom. It's a metaphor for how we walk right into things that destroy us. Vampires' weaknesses are just as symbolic as their strengths. Garlic has long been seen as a ward against evil and illness. Silver was linked to purity and divine light. The crucifix represents life's victory over death. Sunlight as a deadly threat to vampires came along relatively late, but quickly became standard. Daytime is for honesty and openness. These creatures can't exist in the light of truth. Makes sense, right? The need for an invitation into a home is a brilliant folklore detail. It turns each of us into a potential betrayer. After all, the vampire can only enter if we let them in. It's the perfect metaphor for temptation. No reflection in the mirror symbolizes the loss of soul. The vampire is physically there, but spiritually dead. In the era of selfies and social media, this detail has gained a whole new relevance, don't you think? A stake through the heart decapitation, burning. The ways to destroy a vampire are always extreme. Normal death isn't enough for someone who's already beaten it once. Only total annihilation can stop the evil. Now for the most intriguing part. Many vampire legends are based on real people and events. Take Vlad Tepes, the inspiration for Dracula. This 15th century Wallachian ruler really had a fondness for brutal executions and, possibly, the blood of his enemies. Elizabeth Bathory, a 16th century Hungarian countess, went down in history as the Blood Countess. Rumors said she bathed in the blood of young girls to stay youthful. The reality was probably less mystical, but no less horrifying. But it's not just historical figures that fueled the legends. There are several diseases that could have sparked belief in vampires. Porphyria causes sensitivity to sunlight and tooth deformities. Sufferers looked just like vampires were supposed to. Rabies also left its mark on the mythology. Victims avoided sunlight, their behavior changed, and they became aggressive. Most importantly, the disease spread through bites. Sound familiar? In the 18th century, Europe saw real vampire epidemics. The case of Arnold Powell in Serbia in 1726 is especially famous. Whole villages panicked, dug up corpses, and killed them again. Medicine back then couldn't explain why some bodies looked too fresh. Now we know about decomposition processes, but then red lips and grown hair on a corpse seemed like clear proof of vampirism. There are psychological explanations, too. Clinical hematophagia is a disorder where people feel a need to consume blood, and Renfield syndrome makes sufferers believe they're vampires or their servants. Sociologists see vampires as scapegoats. When epidemics, famine, or other disasters hit a village, it was easier to blame a dead person than find real causes. Vampires helped society cope with unexplained tragedies. Everything changed in the 19th century, when Romantics decided monsters could suffer too. Lord Byron was the first to suggest a vampire could be more than just a beast, a tragic figure doomed to eternal torment. John Polidori, Byron's doctor, wrote the story The Vampire in 1819. His Lord Ruthven became the first literary vampire aristocrat, charming, educated, and deadly dangerous. He laid the foundation for the modern archetype. Sheridan Le Fanu went further in his novella Carmilla, creating a female vampire. His heroine wasn't just a predator, but a complex character with her own emotions and attachments, though censorship of the time didn't let the author explore all the subtexts. But the real revolution came from Bram Stoker with Dracula in 1897. He pulled together all the folklore elements and created the image we recognize today. The castle in Transylvania, the black cape, the hypnotic gaze, all Stoker. Cinema picked up the baton. Murnau's Nosferatu in 1922 showed the vampire as the embodiment of death. Repulsive yet mesmerizing. German Expressionism turned inner horrors into visual images. Hollywood in the 1930s romanticized the monster. Bela Lugosi made Dracula a gentleman, dangerous but irresistibly charming. His accent and manners became iconic. Lugosi taught vampires how to be alluring. Hammer Studios in the 1950s and 60s added color, literally. Christopher Lee created a more aggressive, primal Dracula. Blood on screen became bright red, and bite scenes got more sensual. The 1980s brought philosophical vampires. The Hunger with David Bowie, The Lost Boys, Near Dark. Vampires became symbols of youth rebellion and personal freedom. They stopped being just monsters. Anne Rice in Interview with the Vampire made us sympathize with blood drinkers. Her Louis and Lestat wrestled with questions of existence, love, and loneliness. Vampires became philosophers pondering human nature. A Buffy the Vampire Slayer deconstructed the whole genre. Joss Whedon showed that even in a world where vampires are real, they can be funny, pathetic, or love-struck. Some turned out more human than humans. The 21st century took the romanticization to extremes. Stephen E. Meyer's Twilight turned predators into princes. Edward Cullen doesn't drink human blood and sparkles in the sun. Vampires fully became objects of romantic fantasies. Modern shows like True Blood and The Vampire Diaries go even further. They create whole communities of the undead living alongside humans. Vampires became metaphors for minorities fighting for rights in the human world. But why do vampires captivate us so much? Psychologists say they embody our deepest fears and forbidden desires. Let's start with the obvious: fear of death. The vampire is dead but keeps existing. They fulfill our dream of immortality while showing its price. There's a more intimate side too. A vampire's bite is a clear metaphor for intimate encounters. The piercing fangs, exchange of fluids, the victim's ecstasy. In the 19th century, they couldn't talk about it directly, but the symbolism was clear. Vampires let us explore taboo topics. The social aspect matters too. Most literary vampires are aristocrats. Count Dracula, Lord Ruthven. They represent fear of those with power over us, the rich and noble who literally feed off the common people. Vampirism's contagiousness mirrors our fear of epidemics. One bite, and you become a monster. In times of outbreaks and pandemics, this metaphor hits home. A disease that changes your very essence. The loneliness of immortals resonates with modern people. Vampires live for centuries but can't form real bonds. All their loved ones die, while they remain. It's a metaphor for our fear of isolation in a social media world. Vampires' moral ambiguity especially appeals to today's audiences. They're evil but relatable. They kill but suffer. We live in a world where few are purely good or bad. Vampires reflect that complexity. Trading humanity for superpowers is an eternal dilemma. Would you live forever if it meant giving up what makes you human? Vampires embody this scary choice. Carl Jung would call the vampire an archetype of the shadow, the dark side of human nature. The vampire does what we secretly wish, takes what it wants, ignores consequences, lives only for itself. It's our repressed animal side. In the 21st century, vampires have evolved into symbols of outsiders. They live among us but aren't part of our world. For teens feeling like outcasts, it's a powerful metaphor. Being a vampire means being special, even if it brings pain. The catharsis function is clear. Facing fictional horrors helps us process real fears. Vampire stories aid in dealing with anxieties about death, loneliness, and losing control over our lives. Think vampires are just a European thing? Actually, similar creatures appear in folklore worldwide, and Chinese jiangshi are a prime example. These hopping vampires from Taoist tradition can't bend their limbs, so they move by jumping. They absorb life energy qi rather than just blood, and their appearance ties into ideas of natural balance and improper burial. In Japan, blood drinkers take various forms, from nukakubi to kyuketsuki. Nukakubi are beings whose heads detach at night and fly off seeking energy. Kyuketsuki, or blood-sucking demons, are often depicted as pale figures with sharp teeth. These legends reflect Japanese philosophy about spirits and harmony between the living and dead worlds. Indian Rakshasas are demon shapeshifters with reversed palms, able to change appearance. They feed on life force, preferring secluded spots for their deeds. In Hindu mythology, Rakshasas symbolize chaos and the struggle against divine order, often appearing as antagonists in epics. In the Philippines, aswangs are shapeshifters who look like normal people by day, but turn into energy-draining beings at night. They use clever tricks to stay hidden, and legends about them pass down generations, highlighting themes of trust and concealed threats in communities. African Impundulu are lightning bird vampires from Zulu and other traditions. These creatures can take bird or attractive human forms, controlling weather forces. They're linked to ancestral spirits and demand respect, or they might take life energy, reflecting African beliefs in the connection between nature and the supernatural. In Mexico, Tlahuelpuchi are blood-sucking witches from Aztec mythology. They transform into birds or mist to approach unnoticed. These legends predate European influence and emphasize themes of magic and family protection, especially from hidden dangers in everyday life. In the Muslim world, ghouls and blood-drinking jinn are spirits from Arabic folklore. Ghouls dwell in deserts and feed on travelers' energy, often shape-shifting. Jinn, capable of good and evil, sometimes show vampire traits tied to Islamic ideas about the unseen world and tests of faith. Despite the differences, all these global variations share common motifs: fear of disrupting the balance between life and death, transformations, and loss of control. They reflect universal human experiences, like vulnerability to the unknown and the quest for harmony with the world. In the end, vampires are a mirror of our deepest fears and desires, from the horror of ending to the dream of eternal power. Across centuries and cultures, they've evolved, but always reminded us of human fragility and what lurks in the shadows. What do you think? Why are vampires still so popular? Which mythical creatures intrigue you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and we'll definitely cover them in future videos.